Hey you guys, we are in Chapter 2, Section 3, and we are going to look at linear functions as well as slope-intercept form. So we have three objectives here. We want to be able to find slope using the formula for slope. That's a formula you're going to need to know and memorize. I can write linear equations given the slope and the y-intercept, or just given a graph, and I can write equations in slope-intercept form. Alright, so first looking at the vocab. We know that slope is the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. Slope, we also use m to represent it. And slope is also known as rise over run. Or we know slope using the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we get that formula again because slope is the ratio of the vertical change, vertical is our y's, to the horizontal change. Horizontal is our x's. Over here we got this nice picture showing that slope is equal to rise over run. Alright, so finding slope. What is the slope of the line that passes through the given points? So we're going to go ahead and use the slope formula. So m, I'm going to write it in the middle here, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Anytime you're using the slope formula, write it down on your paper so you don't just make some silly error. Now before we plug in our numbers, before we substitute in values, let's label these ordered pairs. I'm going to label the first one x1 and y1, and the second one x2 and y2. And now I'm just going to substitute in those values. So slope is equal to 4 minus 1 over negative 1 minus 2. And I'm going to simplify this. So our slope is equal to 4 minus 1 is 3, and negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. And this can be simplified a little bit more. I'm going to say slope is equal to negative 1. And that's how you use the slope formula. So this is my answer. Looking at part B of our example, again using the slope formula, I have x1, or actually let's change it up this time. It doesn't matter the order of your pairs as long as the 2's are together and the 1's are together. So I'm going to call this x2 and this one y2. This one x1, this one y1. So you just need to know that for each ordered pair you need an x and a y, and that the 2's belong together and the y's belong together. So here I have my slope is equal to 1 minus 1 over 3 minus negative 4. And so notice it's minus a negative, and we know that add a line, change a sign. So slope is equal, 1 minus 1 is 0, over 3 minus negative 4, so 3 plus 4 is 7. And then one step further, 0 divided by 7 is actually just 0. So our slope here is 0. So go ahead, try these two below, find the slope of the line that passes through the given points. Alright, so now let's look at the different types of slope. When you're looking at a graph, you always read it from left to right. So, looking at our first graph over here, if I have a person over here and they are going along this graph, they're going to be walking uphill if we go from left to right. Our little person is going to be walking uphill. So if your line rises from left to right, you have a positive slope. So we don't know exactly what our slope is, but we know that our slope equals some positive number. Look at the next one. Again, if we read it from left to right, and I have a little person over here, well, they're going to be walking downhill. So if we're walking downhill, we're going to have a negative slope. Here you can see that the line falls from left to right, so that means that our slope is going to equal some negative number. Looking at the third one, we have a horizontal line. So if we have a person walking from left to right, they're not going up and they're not going down. They're staying even. So our slope here for any horizontal line is equal to 0. They're not going up, they're not going down, they're staying even. Their slope is 0. Lastly, if we have a person that's walking from left to right, well, they come up here and then they're going to fall down and die. So that happens if you have any vertical line. Once you die, you become undefined. Sorry, kids. That slope is undefined. So any vertical line, your slope is undefined. Any horizontal line, your slope is 0. Alright, this isn't in your notes, but this is Mr. Slope Guy here. And Mr. Slope Guy, if you come into my classroom tomorrow, you'll see him on the board. It's a nice, easy way to remember what kind of slope is represented by what type of line. So here we have a line that rises from left to right, and that's a positive slope. We have a line over here that goes down from left to right, that's a negative slope. We have this horizontal line, that's a slope of 0. And we have this vertical line, that's an undefined slope. So look for him in class tomorrow. Below, I don't have this one in class, but his alter ego, Mr. Slope Guy's alter ego, is Mr. Mean Slope Guy, and it's just the same thing. He just is the mean version. Alright, some more vocab. A linear function. Anytime we talk about anything that's linear, linear is our main word here. It's a function whose graph is a line. So anytime you see a straight line, whether or not it's vertical or horizontal or diagonal, if it's a straight line, then it's a linear function. So linear equations, they can be written in the form y equals mx plus b. I'm going to erase my m. It's kind of taken over the x. Here we go. M. There you go. And this is also known as slope-intercept form, where your m represents your slope and your b represents your y-intercept. So this is just one way, one type of form that we can write linear equations in slope-intercept form, which is represented as y equals mx plus b. So the y-intercept, if we're not too clear on that, for b, that's the point at which a graph crosses the y-axis. Therefore, it's the y-intercept. And the x-intercept is the point at which a graph crosses the x-axis. So look over at this graph here. It's not on your notes, but go ahead and identify for me and sketch this out. Tell me, what is the x-intercept? What's the value? And what's the value for the y-intercept? So I want to know both of these. So sketch this graph out, have these two main points on there, and then tell me what the y-intercept is. It's the point at which a graph crosses the y-axis, and the x-intercept, tell me the point at which a graph crosses the x-axis. Alright, so now we want to be able to write linear equations. So our first step, we're going to identify slope, and we're going to identify the y-intercept. Once we identify those two things, we're going to substitute in those values into slope-intercept form. Because those are the only two things we need to know, is the slope and the y-intercept. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Alright, so in this first example, it says the slope, m, is equal to 1/5, and the y-intercept is 0, negative 3. Well, the y-intercept is always written as 0, b. B represents our y-intercept, and that's what we need in our equation. So, really simply, we can just substitute in these two things. So the equation of our line that has slope of 1/5 and that has a y-intercept of 0, negative 1/3 would be y equals 1/5 x minus 3. Or, if you prefer, y equals 1/5 x plus negative 3, because that's the same thing. All right, and that's it. So we wrote the equation of the line. Look at our other example. We have a picture of a graph here. So first we need to identify our slope and our y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept's pretty easy to identify because here's our y-axis. Oh, here we go. It's like right there. And we just have to identify where does the graph cross that y-axis. And we can see that it crosses it right here at this point, at 4. So this point here is at point 0, 4. So our b is 4. Now we have to figure out our slope. To figure out the slope, all we need to do is choose 2 points, and we have 2 already chosen for us, and find the rise over run. So if I go from left to right, so if I start with this point right here, and my rise, I'm going to have to go down in order to get to this point down here. So my rise is actually going down, so I'm going down 1, 2, 3. So slope, if it's rise over run, then my slope, I said run, wow, over run, then my rise was down 3, so negative 3, and I'm running 1. And I went to the right, and to the right is positive numbers, so 1. And then I can simplify that to just be negative 3. So now I have my b, and I have my m for my slope, and I can write my equation. Y is equal to negative 3x plus 4. So there's the equation of my line. All right, here's your last U-try. We're going to save the rest of the notes for class tomorrow. So just knock this U-try out, and you're done. Thanks, you guys.